I am your physics tutor, Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Ramakrishnan. I am here to teach you about atoms and nuclei. Before that, let us quickly go through how to get into this Classics, how to access the revision notes and the test series given by Classics. Go to classics.com. This is our home page. There you can see different icons. Click on practice. You can select the package, need premium. There you can see the revision notes. So revision notes are basically the important formulae and the concepts which are important for NEET point of view. So we have done everything chapter wise, right from the first chapter to the last chapter, and subject wise, physics, chemistry and biology, whatever is important, the important formulae you'll have to learn, whatever concepts you have to learn. And then once you're thorough with the concepts, you can as well take the tests. So these are the different chapters which we have made here. Whatever is necessary, only that is being made here. So if there's enough, you just go through all the concepts and the formulae and make yourself thorough with this. So now let us quickly go through atoms and nuclei. Atoms, you know, all matter is made of atoms. And let's see what are the important formula. And the nuclei is now going to be the placed within the center, within the atom. So that is now going to be contributing for the mass of the atom. Now let us quickly go through the important formulae which is essential for you to solve the numericals based on these two chapters. So I have clubbed both atom and nuclei together because both of them are small lessons. Of course, they are very important. This lesson is also very important, children. So maybe you can expect 2 questions from this, especially the half-life period or the energy, how to find out the energy of an atom. All these are very important questions. So we have actually gone through the important formulae and we have made them, you can see them available here. So make yourself thorough with all the only DC. Only it is, you cannot expect much of a theoretical question from this from these 2 lessons. They are mostly of numericals only. So that's why we insist on you learning the formula thoroughly. Okay. So coming to atoms, kinetic energy is equal to half mv squared, which is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 z squared E squared by R0, Z E squared by R0, where Z is the atomic mass, E is the, sorry, Z is the atomic number, E is the mass, E is the electron, and R0 is the distance of closest approach. Bohr atomic model, K Z E squared by R is equal to mv squared by R. K Z E squared by R is equal to mv squared by R. Of course, K is nothing but 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0. Z is the atomic number. E is the electronic charge. And R is the radius of the atom, which is given by mv squared by R. M is the mass of the atom, and v is the velocity, and R is the radius. So angular momentum mvr, you know, the electrons are now going to spin, is it not? They are now going to move along the around the nucleus. So the angular momentum mvr is given by nh by 2 pi, where n is equal to 1, 2, 3. H nu is equal to, so the atoms are now going to move from the different levels. So when they, so according to Bohr's theory, when they move from one level to another level, the energy is being given out as radiations. That is why we've given it as h nu, where nu stands for the frequency of the radiations, and h is the Planck's constant, is equal to E2 minus E1. E2 minus E1 is the different levels of the shells. Radius of the stationary orbit R is equal to n squared h squared by 4 pi squared m k z e squared. So where n is the integrals, you can take any values of from 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. H is the Planck's constant, 4 pi squared is a constant again, m is the mass, k is 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0, z is atomic number, and E is the electronic charge. Velocity V is given by 2 pi k E squared by NH, or that is equal to C by N times 2 pi k E squared by, you are now multiplying and dividing by C. That's why we have separated C by N outside, and then you're taking CH inside. Okay, so 2 pi k E squared by CH. So the total energy of the electron in the orbit E is equal to minus 2 pi squared mk squared e power 4 by n squared h squared. Kinetic energy is equal to kZe squared by 2r. Potential energy is equal to kZe squared by r. So note the difference. Kinetic energy is kZe squared by 2r and potential energy is kZe squared by r. Total energy of the electron in an atom in an orbit is E is equal to minus 13.6 by n squared electron volt. So U bar, you know, is nothing but the wave number that is equal to 1 by lambda, which is equal to R into 1 by N1 squared minus 1 by N2 squared. So these are the important formulae when you consider atoms, this lesson atom. So these are the important formulae you'll have to learn. So as I told you, you can expect numericals only from this, very less of theoretical questions or no theoretical questions. Okay, so you'll have to be thorough with when you have to solve the problems, numericals. It is always very essential that you have to be thorough with the formulae, and of course you can see different formulae for the same thing, and you'll have to read into the question properly, understand it, and then analyze it, and then look into the data given, and then see what formulae has to be applied. Then that is now going to make things easier. Okay. Impact parameter B is equal to Ze squared cot theta by 2 by 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 half mv squared. Of course, this is not very important. JE point of view, it is quite important, but NEET point of view, this is not a very important formula. Okay. Now coming to nuclei. Nuclei again is a very important lesson. You can expect questions from half-life period and average mean life, radioactive decay. So these are the important formulae which we have given here. Mass defect, delta M is equal to ZMP plus A minus Z Mj minus Mn. So delta M is the mass defect, Z is the atomic number, Mp is the mass of the proton, plus A is atomic mass, A minus Z into mass of the atom minus, mass of the atom minus Mn, that is mass of the nucleus. Okay? Atomic mass minus the mass of the nucleus. Radioactive decay, dN by dt is equal to lambda n, or n is equal to n0 e to the power of minus lambda t. So lambda is called as the decay constant. T is the time period for the decay. N0 is the original number of nuclei present, number of atoms present, sorry. No, N0 is going to be the original number of atoms present, and N is now going to be the number of atoms present after the decay. Next is half-life of radioactive element Ti by 2 is given by 0.693 by 1 by lambda. As I told you, lambda is the decay constant. Average life of mean life is tau is equal to 1 by lambda, which is equal to 1.44 times the half-life, T half. N by N0 is equal to 1 by 2n. As I told you, you can see you have different formulae now. You will have to analyze yourself to which formulae has to be applied. Okay, so go through the problems. It's very, very easy lesson. Once you are thorough with the formula, then it is going to be pretty easy for you to just simply analyze the data, understand it, and then it is not going to be tricky at all. Atoms and nuclei, they are most probably you'll have only straightforward questions. You will not have any tricky questions from this. So you understand the question and then see to the data given, and then make yourself thorough, make yourself sure of what formula you're going to apply. Activity A is equal to dN by dt, which is equal to lambda n. A is equal to A0 e to the power of minus lambda t. That A stands for the atoms. Okay, atoms. A is equal to A0 e to the power of minus lambda t. Or A by A0 is nothing but as I told you, is equal to n by n0, where n stands for the number of atoms after decay and n0 is going to be the number of atoms before decay. So with at the start, okay, that is equal to initially present is n0, that is given by half of 1 by 2 to the power of n. Or so you can also see, look into the problem carefully and then apply. See, if n and n0 are given, you can apply this formula also. And same way, if a and a0 are given, you can apply this formula. You apply the same formula. What atomic mass unit is equal to 1.66 into 10 to the power of minus 27 kg, and mass of the nucleon is equal to, nucleon you know is nothing but the protons and neutrons together are called as nucleons. So mass of the nucleon is equal to 1.66 in 10 to the power of minus 27 kg, or 1 MeV is equal to 1.6 in 10 to the power of minus 13 joules. One atomic mass unit is equal to 931 MeV. 1 Curie is equal to 3.7 in 10 to the power of 10 disintegration. 1 Rutherford is equal to 10 to the power of 6 disintegrations. Okay, so these are the units. And then the radius of the nuclei is given by R is equal to R0, a to the power of 1 by 3, or you can say R by R0 is equal to a to the power of 1 by 3, where R0 is going to be the empirical constant, that is 1.1 FM. R is now going to be the FM stands for Fermi. R is the radius of the nuclei, and R0 is going to be the distance of closest approach, that is given by R0, and it's always a constant 1.1 FM. Fermi. Density of nucleus rho is given by 3 m by 4 pi R0 cube. M stands for mass, and R0 is the closest approach, distance of closest approach. So density of the nucleus rho can be calculated by using this formula. Total binding energy is equal to delta mc squared. Average binding energy per nucleon is equal to delta mc squared by A. Packing fraction is given by m minus A by A. So these are the important formulae you'll have to know. So now let us quickly go to the test series. Let's see how to access the test series. Yeah. So we have given the subject-wise tests here. See, all physics, chemistry, biology, right from first chapter-wise tests, and also the full-length tests. So you can have the full-length test also. So once you are thorough with all the concepts of every lesson, and you have taken the chapter-wise test for physics, chemistry, and biology, then you can confidently take the NEET tests. Again, we have 38 full tests there. So you can take it any number of times, make yourself sure of the concept, and then with full confidence level, you can go and appear for the NEET exams. So now coming to the test on atoms and nuclei. Yeah. So before that, let me explain you what the different colors tell. The blue bubble says you have not taken the test. The green bubble says you have taken the test. Even if you have taken the test, you can take it any number of times until or otherwise you are happy with your results and 100% sure about the concepts. R is the random test. The red one is going to be the random test. And yellow one says that you have an incomplete test. Okay? So now we're going to the test. I'm going to the first test. Take the test. Go to the test. Now you can see the first question. The energy of an electron in an excited hydrogen atom is minus 3.4 electron volts. Calculate the angular momentum of electron according to Bohr's theory. Planck's constant is 6.626 in 10 to the power of minus 34 joule seconds. Let's quickly solve this. Now we can see that energy is, of the electron in the nth state, En, is given by minus 13.6 divided by n squared electron volts. Or from this we can get n squared is equal to minus 13.6 by En. Now En is given as minus 3.4, right? Minus 3.4. So we can substitute that. So minus 13.6 divided by minus 13.4, which is equal to 4. So n squared is equal to 4, or from this we get n is equal to. So n is equal to 2. According to Bohr's second postulate, the angular momentum L is given by, so we saw in the notes, nh by 2 pi. We saw L is equal to nh by 2 pi. The angular momentum is given by that. So having known all the values, we can now substitute. So Planck's constant is 6.6. Yeah, it is given there, right? You can substitute that 6.6 to 6.626 in 10 to the power of minus 34. Since it is given, you can apply the same value. If it is not given, you can just take 6.6 in 10 to the power of minus 34 into n is 2 divided by 2 into 3.14. So 2 and 2 gets cancelled. After simplification, we get the value to be 2.11 into 10 to the power of minus 34 joules second. So let's see which option is correct. 2.11 into minus, yeah, you can see option B, minus 30. Yeah, option B is correct, because you can see all points, all the options points to 2.11, but look into the powers. So we got 2.11 in 10 to the power of minus 34. So option B is correct. Click that, go to the next. A single electron orbits around a stationary nucleus of charge plus Ze, where Z is a constant and E is the magnitude of the electronic charge. It requires 47.2 electron volts to excite the electron from second Bohr to the third Bohr orbital to the third Bohr orbital. Find the atomic number of the element. Very easy question, children. It's a straightforward question. So it is enough if you understand it. So N1 is given as 2, all right? N1 is 2 and N2 is 3. And delta E is given as 47.2 electron volts. Now you know delta E is equal to 13.6 into Z squared into 1 by N1 squared minus 1 by N2 squared. We need to find out Z. Delta E is given. So from this we can find out 47.2 is equal to 13.6 into Z squared into 1 by 2 squared minus 1 by 3 squared. Or from this we get Z squared is equal to 47.2 divided by 13.6 into 1 by 4 minus 1 by 9. So having, after simplification, we can see that Z squared is equal to 25 or Z is equal to 5. Okay. After simplification, we get this value. So let's see which options to see. It's a straightforward problem. Having known all the data, you can just, if you know the formula, you can directly substitute that, right? So it's now going to be 5. Option A is correct. Select that, go to the next. A single electron orbits around a stationary nucleus of charge plus or minus, plus Ze, where Z is a constant and E is the magnitude of the electronic charge. It requires 47.2 electron volts to excite the electron from the second Bohr orbital to the third Bohr orbital. Find the atomic number of the element, the wavelength of the radiation required to. So in this case, it's very much similar to the previous one until where you have going to find out the atomic number. After that, you can see that the wavelength of the radiation, look into the second part, the wavelength of radiation required to remove the electron from the first Bohr's orbit to infinity is what. So that is what is being asked. What is now going to be the wavelength? Okay. So till this part it is now going to be the same. like how we calculated, we have the first part is now going to be the same. You can say the atomic number is now going to be 5. So until this, it is now going to be the same. Now, after finding out Z, now what is given? It is now going to move from the first orbit to the second orbit. So N1 is equal to 1 and N2 is infinity. Okay. So, and delta E is now going to be the potential, ionization energy. So that is equal to 13.6 into, so we have found out Z to be 5. So 5 squared into 1 by 1 squared minus 1 by 2 squared. That's it. So that is equal to, when you calculate, when we simplify this, that gives you 113.6 into 25 into 1 minus 1 by 4. So when I simplify this, I get the value to be 340 electron volts. Alright, so 340 electron volts. So we know, but we need to find out the wavelength. This is not over here. We need to find out the wavelength. So lambda is equal to, we know that is hc by delta E. Now having known all the values, 6.6 into 10 to the power of minus 34 into C is 3 into 10 to the power of 8 divided by delta E is, we found out it is, see this is in electron volts, we need to convert it to joules, so multiplied by 1.6, so 340 into 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 90. Alright, so we are converting it to joules. It should not apply directly as electron volts, we need to convert it to joules and then get. So when I simplify this, I get the value to be 36.56 into 10 to the power of minus 10 degrees angstrom. Let's see which option is correct. 36.6, so option B is correct. So this is now going to be meters, children. So this is not an angstrom, this is going to be meters. So or 36.6 degrees angstrom. Alright, so that is where we got 36.6. Yeah, the previous one, 36.6 angstrom. So we have saved that. Now going to the fourth one. In a transition to a state of excitation energy, 10.19 electron volt. So the excitation energy is given as 10.19 electron volt. A hydrogen atom emits a 4,890 degrees angstrom photon. Then the binding energy of the initial state is 1. All right. Now, the energy of the emitted photon is given by h nu is equal to hc by lambda, where nu is nothing but c by lambda. So I'll put it as hc by lambda. So when I substitute the value, I'll get it as 6.6 into 10 to the power of minus 34 into 3 into 10 to the power of 8 divided by lambda was given as 4.8, right? So 4.89 into 10 to the power of 3. So when I substitute this, I'm getting it as 2.54 electron volts. So now you know En is equal to E1 plus Ex. All right, where E1 is the energy in the ground state and Ex is going to be the energy in the excited state, from the or the energy required to excite the atom in the ground state to the above state. Okay. So now E1 is given as, you know that it is now going to be minus 13.6. Okay, so that is given as 3.14. So this is now going to be En is equal to minus 13.6 and Ex is given as plus 10.19. So when we add this, that we are getting it as minus 3.41 electron volts. All right. So we have found out En now. So the photon arises from the transition between the states that such that. So now you know this is now going to be given out as radiation. This energy is now going to be given out. So we can say h nu is equal to minus 3.41. Okay. H nu is equal to minus 3.41. So, or in other words, I'm sorry, children. Wait. H nu is equal to Ex. Oh, I'm sorry. Ex minus E1. Okay, Ex minus E1. So it has now been projected to the uppermost level, and from there, when it comes to the ground level, that is now going to be given as the radiations. Okay, this is now going to be Ex minus E1 is now going to be the radiations. Okay, so that is Ex. We don't know Ex, but we know E1. That is we have found out E1 plus Ex. That is being given as minus 3.4. So minus of minus 3.41. That energy, the ionization energy, which is now going to be the energy which is now going to be E1 plus Ex. So I am substituting that here, minus 3.41. That is now going to be the energy required. So that is equal to 2.54. That is given as 2.5. This is what we found out, right? Yeah. So that is equal to h nu. That is what we found out to be 2.54. Equate that, or from this we get Ex is equal to 3.41 minus 2.54. So that is nothing but 0.87 electrons. Minus 0.8 minus 0.87 electron volts. Let's see which option is correct. Yeah, this option is correct. So save that, go to the next. Which of the following is not deflected by a magnetic field? Beta rays, alpha rays, positrons, gamma rays. Now we can see that beta, gamma and positron, they're all charged particles. They're all charged. Okay, they have charges. Beta can be, it is something equivalent to an electron. Alpha particles are positively charged particles. Positrons again they are positively charged particles. Gamma particles, gamma rays do not have any charges, so they are not deflected by any electric. Okay, they are not affected by any electric field. So a magnetic field will only deflect object that has charges. Okay, or a magnetic. So alpha, beta, and positrons, all these have charges. Only gamma rays do not have charges. So that should be the correct option. Okay, so save that. Go to the next. An isotope is radioactive. It is being produced at a constant rate B. Half-life of radioactive substance is A. After some time, number of radioactive nuclei becomes constant. Then the value of this constant is 1. All right. So number of radioactive nuclei becomes a constant when does it become constant? When B is equal to lambda n. B is equal to lambda n. So B is a constant, it's given. Or from this we can say n is equal to, so this implies n is equal to beta by lambda. Beta by lambda. But lambda, is nothing but ln 2 by A, right? So I'll substitute in the place of, so this is equal to B by ln 2 by A, or just nothing but AB by ln. AB by ln 2. Let's see which option is correct. AB by ln 2. Yes, that is correct. So save that. Go to the next. The half-life of radioactive radon is 3.8 days. The time at the end of which 1/20th of radon sample will remain undecayed is what? 18 days, 16.5 days, 17.5 days, 19.2 days. This we need to calculate. So we can use the half-life formula. Let me tell you which formula to use. Now n is equal to n0 e to the power of minus lambda t. Or it is said that n is equal to n0 by 20. So let us now substitute the values. N0 by 20 is equal to n0 into e to the power of minus lambda. Already we saw it is nothing but ln 2 by A is 38 here into t. We need to find out t only. So all the values are known. So substitute n0 and n0, it gets cancelled. So you get as 1/20 is equal to e to the power of minus ln 2 by 38 into t. Or from this we get ln or lambda ln 2 by t half. We need to find out t half, right? T half is equal to ln 2 by So ln 2 and ln 2 gets cancelled. So that will give you, so T half is equal to lambda by T half is equal to 1 by 38, or from this, now look at the question, you can see that it is given that at the end of, so it is given us 3.8 days, all right, 3.8 days. Now you can multiply and find out that it is now going to be 16.5 days. Okay, after substituting the value for lambda and calculating it, you can find out that T half is going to be equal to 16.5 days. Save that option, go to the next. The binding energy of two nuclei, A and B, are X and Y. Two atoms of A fuse to give one atom of B, and energy P is released. Then P is equal to what? P is equal to y minus x, P is equal to y minus 2x, P is equal to y plus x, P is equal to 2y minus x. Let's see. Now, during the fusion, binding energy of the daughter nuclei is always greater than the total binding energy of the parent nuclei. Okay, that is, during fusion, the binding energy of the daughter nuclei is always greater than the total binding energy of the parent nuclei. So the difference in the binding energy is now going to be released out. That is what is released as energy. So P is equal to y minus 2x, y minus 2x. That should be the correct option. Yeah. Click that, go to the next. So 22Ne nucleus, after absorbing energy, decays into two alpha particles and an unknown nucleus. The unknown nucleus is what? Nitrogen, boron, carbon, or oxygen. Now let's solve this. Atomic number of the mean is given. Let us is 10. Okay, atomic number of the mean, or mean atomic number is 10. Mean atomic number is 10. By emission of two alpha particles, atomic number is now going to be reduced by 4. He says atomic number is reduced to 4, reduced by 4. And atomic number of an unknown element, so that is now going to be Z is equal to 10 minus 4, which is equal to 6. Same way, mass of the unknown element will be A is equal to, mass is given 22 minus 2 into 4. Okay, 2 into 4, which is equal to 22 minus 8, which is equal to 14. So the atomic number is 6, atomic mass is 14. Clearly, it is now going to be carbon. You can see it is now going to be carbon. Option 9, option C is correct. Save that. The next question is, in a radioactive process, nucleus X finally transforms into a stable nucleus Y. Then X and Y can be isobars, isotopes, isotones, none of the above. This is a somewhat a conceptual question, you can say. You know, the nucleus of a radioisotope is very unstable, right? So, in an attempt to reach a more stable arrangement of protons and neutrons, the nucleus will always try to spontaneously decompose to form a different nucleus. Okay, if the number of neutrons change in the process, and then you can say that it is now going to be, obviously it is nothing but an isotope, right? So an isotope is formed. So this, the X and Y should be, so they have the same atomic number but different mass numbers, so it should be isotopes. In a sample of radioactive substance, what fraction of initial number of nuclei will remain undecayed after time t is equal to p by 2, where p is equal to half-life of substance? Now, let us take the initial number of nuclei to be N0. Okay, let us take. solve this. Let the initial number of nuclei be n0. And let after n half-lives, let it be n. Okay, after n half-life, it will be n, or we can now put it as n is equal to n0 by 2n, 2 to the power of n. Okay, but he says n is equal to 0.5. Okay, so therefore, number of nuclei is equal to n0 by 2 to the power of 0.5. 0.5 is nothing but half, is it not? So n0 by 2 to the power of, now I can put it as n0. So n0 by, so that gives you 2 to the power of half, or we can put it as n0 and 0 gets cancelled, that gives you 1 by root. So 1 by root 2 is going to be the correct option. Fraction of the radioactive substance which is present is now going to be 1 by root 2. B option is correct. Save that, go to the next. If a nucleus disintegrates into two nuclear parts which have their velocities in the ratio 2:1, the ratio of their nuclear sizes will be 1. This is very interesting and very easy also. Now, radius and mass are now going to be equal to their cube roots. Okay, so when I say R1 by R2, so where R1 and R2 are the radii of the two atomic nuclei, and their masses are now going to be m2, and the other one is going to be 2m2, right? So this is now going to be equal to their cube root. Okay, that is equal to the cube root, because we know m is proportional to r to the power of 1 by 2. So r cubed, m is proportional to r cubed, or r is equal to m to the power of 1. So that is what I have applied here. So that gives you 1 by, so m2 m2 gets cancelled, so 1 by 2 to the power of 1 by 2. So 2 to the power of 1 is 2. A option is correct. So save that. A beta decay is a type of radioactive decay in which a beta particle is emitted from an atomic nucleus. During a negative beta decay, beta negative, which of the following happens? An atomic electron is ejected. An electron which is already present within the nucleus is ejected. A neutron is in nucleus decays, emitting an electron. None of the above. Understand the question properly. Now, actually, there are two types of beta decays: beta positive and beta negative. In the case of beta decay, when the electron is emitted, we say it is beta negative decay, and when a positron is emitted, we say it is a beta positive decay. So here you can say that a neutron in nucleus decays, and that is by emitting an electron, because it's a beta negative decay. So you can say that C option is going to be correct. So that's the correct option. Now consider alpha, beta, gamma rays, each having an energy of 1 mega electron volts. Arrange them in increasing order of penetrating parts of radiation. Now gamma rays are positively charged, beta rays are negatively charged, and alpha, they do not have any charge, they are neutrally charged. So the penetrating power of gamma is always a maximum, okay, because it does not have any charge. Its penetrating power, it's not going to be deflected by any electric field or magnetic field, so it goes undeviated. Okay, so its penetrating power is the maximum, and then it has, you can say that when compared to alpha, beta or alpha rays, gamma rays are now going to have the maximum penetrating power. So you can say it is now going to be gamma, then beta, and then alpha. Yeah. So option B is correct. Finally, for the last one, the fast neutrons can easily be slowed down by applying strong field elastic collisions by heavy nuclei passing through regular water heavy water or graphite, or use of load sheet. So now you can see that it is very common here, like say uh, uh, the fast neutrons. We generally fast neutrons need to be slowed down because you have to, the nuclear reaction has to, the chain reaction has to be going on and on. It shouldn't be stopped. So generally it can be reduced by or it can be slowed down. The fast nucleus can be slowed down by having, by passing them through regular water or by heavy water or using graphite rods. So these are the common methods of slowing down the fast neutrons. Okay, so that should be the correct option. C. So we have completed the test now. Let's end the test and see what is the result. So all our answers were right. No incorrect questions. So that's why it shows green. Had you forgotten to save your answers, then it will show as unanswered questions. So otherwise, if one of your answers were wrong, then it would have said, it would have shown by a red color. If you want to verify your answers, you can as well go to, and if say suppose had been 10th question had been wrong, then click on to the 10th question. In a radioactive process, nucleus X finally transforms into a stable nucleus Y. Then X and Y can be, so we said isotopes, it was correct. Let us see what the explanation says. So isotopes, because A and B can be isotopes because number of beta decays is twice the time of the alpha decays, or you can say that the nucleus undergoes decay so that it can now transform into a nucleus of another substance. So obviously when it is now going to reduce, say if the beta or alpha is now going to, alpha beta decay happens, then obviously you can see the number of protons are now going to change. So obviously the mass, atomic mass, whenever the elements in the nucleus change means, then it is now going to be the mass number which is now changing. So whenever there is change in the mass number, that is nothing but isotopes. So elements which have the different mass number but same atomic number, then you call them as, I mean, whenever the neutrons are going to change, then you say it is an isotope, right? So that is what the explanation is given here. So this way you can make sure of your answers. You can take this test any number of times and make yourself thorough with the concepts and the formulae again and again, so that while attempting the NEET full test, you'll be thorough. By the time you take the full test, you're going to be thorough with each and every concept and every formulae. As I told you, remember, every time I keep telling, time management is very, very important when you take the NEET exams, because the questions might be very identical. So that time only, when you are thorough with the formulae and concepts, you can hit the question correctly, hit the options correctly. So if in the hurry, you might not look into the options properly, because options might be identical as we saw in several problems. So the powers might be different, or the units might be different, or the main magnitude will be the same, but all these small factors might change. See, these are the minute factors which you have to take into account while taking the test. So that is why by practicing more and more of NEET tests, which was given by Class 6, it is now really going to be helpful by the time when you are ready to go and give the NEET exams. You would have gained utmost confidence, and with the utmost confidence level, you can practice NEET exams very well. Okay. So, do you have any questions to be asked, children?